the icy metal grating. I scrambled down the stairs, my heart pounding so hard I thought my ribs would splinter. Below the dark, snow-dusted alley off Logan Boulevard was quiet, completely indifferent to the war happening in Unit 4B. I hit the asphalt just as a heavy body landed beside me. I shrieked, but a large hand clamped over my mouth. "It's me," Gabriel grunted. His face was pale, his jaw set in a hard, violent line. The white bandages I had applied were blooming with fresh, bright red blood, but his grip was as strong as ever. "Move! Now!" He dragged me down the alley, throwing us behind a row of dumpsters, just as my bedroom window shattered above us. Bullets chewed into the brick wall where we had been standing seconds before. Gabriel pulled a set of keys from his pocket and hit a button. A nondescript black sedan, parked illegally by the curb, flashed its lights. "Get in the floorboard of the back seat," he ordered, shoving me toward the door. I didn't argue. I threw my heavy body into the back, curling into a tight ball on the floor mats. Gabriel slid into the driver's seat, the engine roaring to life before the door even closed. We tore out of the alley, the tires screaming against the frozen pavement. I lay there in the dark, sobbing quietly, my thick thighs pressed against my chest. My life was over. My apartment was a war zone. I was going to die because I was good at math. "Breathe, Clara." Gabriel's voice floated back to me, surprisingly calm amidst the chaos. "They aren't following us. We're clear." We drove in silence for nearly an hour. When the car finally slowed, I peeked over the seat. We were pulling into the attached garage of a modern, secluded home in Oak Park, a quiet suburb miles away from the city's underbelly. The garage door closed behind us, sealing us in pitch blackness, until Gabriel turned on the overhead lights. He practically fell out of the car, his hand clutching his bleeding shoulder. My panic over my own situation vanished, replaced by the terrifying realization that my mafia boss was bleeding out again. I scrambled out and helped him into the house. It was a safe house, minimalist, sterile, and fully equipped for disasters. I guided him to a leather sofa in the living room and immediately started searching the pristine cabinets for medical supplies. By the time I had restitched the tear in his wound and bandaged him back up, my hands were coated in his blood again. I sat back on my heels, the adrenaline fading, leaving me exhausted and utterly broken. I looked down at my body, my stomach rolling over the waistband of my pajamas, my thick arms trembling. I felt so incredibly out of place. Gabriel reached out his uninjured arm, wrapping around my waist, pulling me up onto the sofa beside him. He didn't just sit me next to him. He pulled me directly onto his lap. I gasped, stiffening, hyper-aware of my weight pressing down on him. "Gabriel, stop, I'm too heavy. If you say that again, I'm going to kiss you until you forget the word." He growled, his dark eyes flashing with a fierce, possessive heat. He wrapped both arms around my thick waist, burying his face in the crook of my neck. "You feel like home, Clara. You feel safe. Stop apologizing for taking up space in a world that owes you everything." Tears spilled down my cheeks. For 29 years I had been told to shrink, to diet, to hide, to be less. And here was the most dangerous, powerful man in Chicago, treating my soft, plus-size body like it was a religious artifact. His large hands roamed over the curve of my hips, squeezing the plush flesh of my thighs with unabashed worship. They framed me. I whispered into his hair the reality of the morning setting in. Gabriel pulled back, his expression turning lethal. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone, pulling up a local news stream. The headline made my stomach violently drop. "Local accountant Clara Higgins sought in $4 million embezzlement scheme. Police suspect ties to organized crime. On the screen, Detective Jack Sullivan, a notoriously dirty cop I had read about in the papers, was standing at a podium. Next to him, looking deeply solemn and fake, was my boss, Richard Miller. Miller. Gabriel spat the name like poison. He's been washing Vincent's stolen money. When you found the leak, they realized they needed a fall guy. They set you up to take the charge and sent Vincent's men to kill you so you could never testify. I'm a fugitive, I sobbed, burying my face in my hands. I'm a fat, boring accountant, and I'm on the FBI's most wanted list. You're not going down for this, Gabriel said, grabbing my chin and forcing me to look at him. The sheer authority in his eyes sent a shiver down my spine. You are mine, Clara, and nobody touches what is mine. We are going to destroy them. How? I cried. We're hiding in the suburbs. I watched his mind work, the ruthless mafia kingpin, calculating his next move. Then an idea sparked in my own brain. The one thing I knew better than Gabriel Rossi was numbers. Wait, I said, wiping my eyes and sitting up. Miller thinks I'm just a dumb girl with a calculator. But when I found the apex discrepancy, I backed up the entire firm's encrypted ledger onto a hidden cloud server. He doesn't know I have it. Gabriel's eyes widened, a slow, wicked smile spreading across his handsome face. You stole the ledger. I secured it for auditing purposes. I corrected a tiny surge of confidence blooming in my chest. If I can get a laptop, I can trace the IP addresses of the shell companies back to Miller's personal accounts. I can prove he and Vincent orchestrated the theft. Gabriel pulled me down by the back of my neck and kissed me hard, devouring my mouth with a hunger that made my toes curl. Have I mentioned I am completely obsessed with your brain, too? The next 48 hours were a blur of caffeine code and stolen kisses. Gabriel had one of his loyal men, a towering, terrifying Irishman named Liam Donovan, smuggle a high-grade laptop and encrypted hard drives to the safe house. While Gabriel spent the days on burner phones rallying the capos who hadn't betrayed him, I sat at the kitchen island, fingers flying across the keyboard. I felt completely different. I wasn't the timid girl hiding her stomach under baggy clothes anymore. I was Gabriel's equal. Every time I cracked a new layer of Miller's firewall, Gabriel would walk up behind me, press his chest against my back, and kiss the side of my neck, whispering filthy, encouraging praises into my ear. By Thursday night, I had it. Got him. I breathed, staring at the screen. Miller funneled the $4 million through 3 offshore accounts directly into a trust owned by Vincent's wife, and I have the digital signatures to prove it. Gabriel leaned over my shoulder, his eyes scanning the data. You are magnificent, Clara. He turned to Liam, who was cleaning a custom assault rifle at the dining table. Call the men. Tell them we know where Vincent is tonight. He's at the shipping yard on the Calumet River. Liam grunted, slapping a magazine into the weapon. Meeting with Miller to finalize the takeover. Good, Gabriel said smoothly, adjusting the cuffs of the fresh black suit Liam had brought him. He looked like the devil himself, elegant, terrifying, and undeniably gorgeous. He turned to me, his expression softening. Send the files to Detective Sullivan's captain. The feds, too. Clear your name. I'll take care of the rest. I'm coming with you, I said, standing up. Gabriel frowned. Clara, no. It's going to be a bloodbath. I don't care. I said, my voice steady. I crossed the room and placed my soft hands flat against his hard chest. They ruined my apartment. They ruined my life. They made me feel like I was nothing. I want to watch them lose. Gabriel stared at me for a long moment, a dark, primal pride swelling in his eyes. He wrapped his hand around the back of my neck. "Okay, but you stay behind, Liam." "Understood." An hour later, we were standing in the freezing rain outside Warehouse 4 at the Calumet shipping yards. Gabriel had amassed 20 of his most lethal enforcers. They moved like shadows slipping through the side doors. Liam stayed right in front of me, a human shield. Inside the massive, echoing warehouse, Vincent and Richard Miller were standing over a table covered in blueprints and cash. "It's done," Vincent was saying, a smug grin on his face. "Gabriel is dead, the girl is taking the fall, and the city is ours." "Not quite," a voice boomed through the warehouse. Gabriel stepped out of the shadows, his gun raised. The sheer terror that washed over Vincent and Miller's faces was the most satisfying thing I had ever seen. Vincent's men immediately drew their weapons, but Gabriel's loyalists stepped out from the catwalks above laser sights, painting a dozen red dots on Vincent's crew. "Drop them," Gabriel commanded. The authority in his voice left no room for debate. One by one, Vincent's men lowered their guns. They knew a losing battle when they saw it. "Gabriel," Vincent stammered, holding his hands up. "We can talk about this. We're family." "You shot me in the back," Gabriel said, his voice terrifyingly calm as he closed the distance. "But worse than that, you put a hit on my woman." Miller, my slimy, cowardly boss, fell to his knees. "I didn't know Vincent made me do it. Clara, tell him." He looked past Gabriel, finally spotting me standing by the door. I stepped out from behind Liam. I didn't try to make myself look smaller. I stood tall, letting my curves fill my coat, letting them see the woman who had just dismantled their entire empire from a kitchen counter. "I sent the files to the FBI 20 minutes ago. Mr. Miller." I said, my voice echoing in the silent warehouse. "Your accounts are frozen. The warrants have been issued. You're going to federal prison for a very, very long time." Miller began to sob. Sirens began wailing in the distance, growing louder by the second. Gabriel didn't look at the police approaching. He kept his gun leveled at Vincent. "The cops can have the accountant," Gabriel whispered, loud enough for only us to hear. "But they don't get the traitor." 2 shots rang out. Vincent crumpled to the floor. Gabriel turned his back on the body, walking calmly toward me, as the warehouse doors burst open and SWAT teams flooded the building. He grabbed my waist, pulling me flush against him, as chaos erupted. Liam and the men faded into the shadows, escaping before the cops could fully secure the perimeter, but Gabriel stayed right beside me. "They're going to arrest you," I panicked as the cops swarmed Miller. "They have nothing on me. I'm just a legitimate businessman checking on my property." Gabriel smirked, his thumb tracing my lower lip. "And you're my brilliant, beautiful savior." 6 months later, I wasn't living in Unit 4B anymore. I was standing on the balcony of Gabriel's massive downtown penthouse, wearing a custom silk robe that draped perfectly over my thick thighs and soft belly. I held a glass of expensive champagne, looking out over the glittering Chicago skyline. Richard Miller was serving 20 years in federal prison. My name had been completely cleared, and with the massive settlement I received from the firm for wrongful termination and endangerment, I had started my own private consulting business. My only client was the Rossi legitimate empire. A pair of strong, heavily tattooed arms wrapped around my waist from behind. Gabriel pressed his chest against my back, burying his face in my neck. "You're working late, Mayor Regina," he murmured, his hands immediately finding the soft curve of my stomach, rubbing it affectionately. "Just making sure your real estate taxes are legal." "Mr. Rossi," I teased, leaning back into his solid warmth. "I don't care about the taxes," he whispered, turning me around so I was flush against him. He looked down at me, his dark eyes filled with that same absolute obsession he had shown me on the first night. "I only care about you, my beautiful, perfect girl." He kissed me slow and deep under the city lights. I wasn't just the quiet, overweight girl in the background anymore. I was the queen of Chicago's underworld, loved, fiercely protected, endlessly, and finally taking up exactly the right amount of space. If you loved Gabriel and Clara's intense, high-stakes mafia romance, please drop a like on this video. Share it with friends who love a curvy heroine who gets her happily ever after, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more thrilling romance stories. See you next time.